Hey you guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on Flame in the Mist by Renee Adhieh. So I have a lot to talk about with this book, and I'm going to be splitting this up into two different parts. Parts of things that I did like and parts that I didn't like. So hopefully we'll just get right into it and I don't have to keep babbling and lengthening this intro. So if for those of you guys who don't know, Flame in the Mist is like, well, it was kind of, advertised as a Japanese retelling of Mulan. And for those of you who don't know me, which is I'm assuming is a lot, I adore Mulan. It's one of my favorite Disney movies, and I think that the idea of a Japanese retelling, which is like Japan is like one of my the places to visit on my bucket list, was kind of like, yes, I have to read this, especially since it's told in feudal era Japan. However, reading into it, it's kind of not that. There's a lot more magical elements. Not saying that Mulan isn't filled with magic, but it's also a bit more, it's very different from the Japanese retelling of Mulan. It's kind of, she gets ransacked on her way to marry the guy she's been betrothed to, and she chooses to dress up as a guy to save her honor because she can't go back home being the lone survivor after the people who ransacked her were considerably, probably just all males. And because of that, her honor's kind of at stake. And coming from a more traditional Asian culture, it is feudal Japan after all, where where this is kind of a big price for a girl. She has to come up with the fact that she has to prove the fact that she is still pure and a virgin, and on top of that, she has to prove the fact that she just wants to prove her worth, so that's why she comes up and dresses as a man. And overall, I thought this book, the premise had a lot of good things. The premise was very interesting. However, I felt that the plot points, there was a lot of things going on, and some of the things didn't get implemented in a way that I feel was true to the book, and kind of helped the overall progression of the characters and the overall progression of the novel in general. But I'm gonna get into that. So, as for things I did like, I really liked Mariko's personality. I thought that she was a very realistic person. Her goals were very one-track minded, which I think, coming from a very sheltered girl, it's very easy to see how she became very one-track minded. She was very focused on proving her worth. She was very sympathetic in general. I thought that the things that she wanted, proving herself and showing that she's more than just this thing to marry off and form an alliance with, was very realistic, especially given for feudal era Japan. Let's see. Her goals and values were very easy to interpret. There wasn't a lot of complexity behind them, which I think, given how complex this book is, after you read more, after you get past the surface level, it's very important that her goals and her values were a little more transparent to me. Her development was very much on the nose with kind of how Mulan's was in the Disney movie. She was very clumsy. You can see her trying to learn how to fight and learn how to be this person that should know these things about the outside world, but she doesn't. She's very clumsy. She doesn't know specific things like how to climb something, how to fight, what to do, how to say things, how to be a good liar. And on top of that, she has a really tunnel vision set idea of the world. She doesn't, she only really wants to prove her worth, kind of in a similar way that Mulan wants to just join the army and save her father. Mariko has a very, she just wants to prove the fact that she's more than just a pretty face. And on top of that, she got to see a side of the world, her world outside of this sheltered life, that hints that it's not so perfect once you get beyond the walls. And I thought that was very good. You can see a lot of her denial here. You get to see Mariko kind of grow as a person and become this somewhat badass fighter, which I appreciated because, who doesn't love a beautiful thing coming and becoming a badass fighter, because, whatnot. Because, and whatnot. As for writing style, I thought that it was also very beautiful. It was very vivid. I knew exactly what was going on. I thought I knew how things worked. I didn't need to kind of figure out the world around me. It just kind of was laid out in front of me, and I didn't have to worry about figuring out, oh, who is this person again? Renee Adhieh did a wonderful job of giving me very of kind of very detailed personalities, if that makes sense. But I'm gonna get into detailed side characters. The side characters to me were very, very detailed. I could see a lot of them. I could vividly see how they're supposed to look in my mind, how they're supposed to act, even their laughter, which I thought was a beautiful thing. But I am kind of gonna I'm gonna get into more of the characters later. But as of right now, I thought that for the writing style, it was very good at depicting the characters and just kind of telling me what was going on and how things were working. And it wasn't at all kind of confusing to pick out who was who. Like, you knew off the bat because they had their distinct features, just due to the kind of the writing style, as well as like how the characters portrayed their thoughts on the page, which actually I thought was really nice, considering there's a lot of characters. As for plot, I really enjoyed the idea of a girl dressing up as a man to further the plot. Obviously, it's kind of the big part of the plot, but it pushes the plot along, and kind of gain the idea of her being able to experience the world as a man in a sense where she wouldn't be able to as a woman, helped out a lot as well, considering she is in a time where women were just kind of a pretty face and you weren't supposed to speak. You're supposed to act proper, dress a certain way, and get married off, especially since she was to be married off to, I believe, the emperor's son. Yes. Or the emperor's bastard son. Either or, one of the emperor's sons she was supposed to marry. And she got to experience like the world in a new way. She found out new things about the world that she didn't realize were even a possibility growing up in such a sheltered life as she did. And then I thought that the plot, in a sense, moved pretty naturally. Nothing about it felt forced or felt unnecessary. I thought that every bit of it was necessary to the overall arching theme and kind of the characters pushing the plot forward and just their development in general. So those are the kind of things that I liked about this book. However, moving on to the things I didn't like. So you know how much I mentioned that I liked the writing style in the parts I did like? I also didn't like it for a number of reasons, and that kind of it felt like it was a prose version of a haiku, if that makes sense, which is kind of a little stereotypical considering it's set in Japan, but it just, like, for the most part, it's understandable. Like, you know, there are different ways that that people convey the word, like how people view the world back then, and I'm not a historian, so I can't be like, this is exactly how they would have written it, but to me, it felt a little bit heavy-handed, because it really just felt like it was a haiku version, like a prose version of a haiku, and after a while it just kind of got a little old, especially since there was a lot of description. I love description, don't get me wrong, however, there wasn't a lot of character voice, just a lot of like what was going on here, how could she do this, how could she do that, and it wasn't like, there wasn't a lot of vocal stuff going on, and I couldn't characterize like the character. It was very hard to characterize the characters outside of their own thoughts, if that makes sense. And on top of that, the descriptions were just very distracting after a while. It just kept me from retaining things. So I don't know if that was just me, but I just thought that the description was very heavy-handed, and it could have like gained a little bit less of the description and more of like kind of, more dialogue. There we go. All right. As for characters, I did like Mariko, and I did like the side characters. I felt that the rest of them all felt very flat, especially coming from the males. I didn't see them kind of grow as characters, at least not the guys anyways. A lot of them tended to follow like a lot of like tropes, like the leader of the Black Clan, Ranmaru, is the cool and all-knowing leader who doesn't seem phased, but is really like this evil master, like not an evil mastermind, but he has a lot going on, and he has like this ability to kind of cloak that all and just know everything. Kenshin was Mariko's older brother, or twin brother, and he was just the oblivious, like he was just the stereotypical oblivious warrior who's always level-headed and doesn't like express emotions very well, at least not until he realizes he had lost something that he thought that he finally thought was necessary in his life. And Okami, who was later as the love interest, became like this almost Sasuke-like figure for me, if you guys haven't seen Naruto. But he was just very like emotionless. He just didn't want to do anything. He was very talented. He had a lot of secrets that he was hiding. And after a while, I was just like, why does it feel like I am watching like a weirder version of Naruto when I see his character on the page? And I just wanted to see a lot more. Like, they just kind of fell into tropes to me, and I just On top of that, the magic system was a very slow build, which I don't mind. I thought that like slowly building it up, given how much stuff was going on in the book, was a good idea. However, we do got a lot of hints that Okami was had the ability to use magic, but we never got a chance to realize exactly how magic was used. And because it was such a slow build up, by the end of it, like the magic just randomly exploded out of nowhere, and then it was just, what happened? Like, I sat there for a good minute, like, after reading the ending, like, I don't know what this means, or how this, what, and it's just, I just feel like that wasn't the best way to kind of build up this magic system and then explode it right at the climax, because there was a lot going on already at the climax, and then you add magic into it, and it was just, like, it wasn't, like, mind-blowing in a good way. It was mind-blowing in the sense that, like, I was just confused, and that I feel like there could have been a better way to, like, slowly ease into the magic, or even, like, leave it just at hints throughout the book and then explain it more in the second book once we get a better understanding. But yeah, I feel like the magic wasn't something that I personally, like, you could have gone probably the entire book without having to mention the magic system or even hint at magic. Like, it was just a random, like, oh, does he have magic? Oh, you have magic. And you just, like, you understood that magic was a thing, but you didn't understand how much of a thing it was, and I feel like it could have benefited more without the magic. As for the romance, yes, there is a romance, which is kind of a little weird, considering, like, it's supposed to be kind of this female growth, but it's just weird. But so there is a romance between Mariko and Okami. However, I didn't see it develop at all whatsoever. I thought that Okami saw Mariko while she was dressed as just a male, and he had no attraction to her as a male whatsoever. He saw her as a nuisance. He thought that there were better things for him to do other than to train her. So when he saves Mariko and finds out she's a female, they somehow share a kiss, because Mariko's always been wanting to kiss him, which was also weird because she just kind of she mentions more that she dislikes him, rather than, and then you'll see little hints of, oh, why did I think that I wanted to kiss him? But there wasn't a single hint of her falling for him, if that makes sense. There was no build-up to their romance. I felt that it came out of nowhere. It was just like, we kissed and now we're kind of like adoring each other, and it's just beautiful and great, and I am now Okami's weakness, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. It all seemed very sudden, and I felt like there could have been a better way, again, with building up that romance, or perhaps not even having it explode like the magic system did towards more so the end, and have it slowly build up into the second book, because it just all felt very rushed. And I feel that, given the fact that this was supposed to be about Mariko and her growth, having it rushed kind of ruined her characterization for me. Alright, now I'm gonna get into the ending. This is probably gonna be the most spoilery part because it's the ending, but I honestly couldn't tell you what happened in the ending, which is really bad, because like I said, a lot of stuff just kind of started happening. Like, the magic system just blew up in the last few pages. All I can tell you is that the emperor was killed by his wife, not his mistress, his wife, who apparently has magic, but it was hinted that his mistress had magic, and I'm just very confused. On top of that, all I knew is that Mariko got caught and was going to be dragged away to her, to get married, and Okami let himself get caught to save everyone, even though Mariko already did that to save everyone. And it was just, just thinking about it, it's starting to get my head throbbing a little bit because I'm trying to figure it out. And honestly, it felt like with all the stuff that happened, it felt like she didn't know how to end the book, and she was just kind of like, I'm just gonna throw in all this cliffhanger stuff and hope for the best that it works, and hopefully, just hopefully, once I finish throwing it in, it'll make people want to read more. But after I read it, I like had to go back and reread the ending, and not in a good way, but in a way that I was just like, well, what happened? I don't get it. And even then I was still like, what happened? I don't get it. So I think there must have been like a better way to wrap up the story, or maybe leave it at a cliffhanger that wasn't so, what's the word, wrapped up, if that makes sense. Like, you get the fact that Okami and Mariko gets caught, and that's that storyline. Then we get introduced into another storyline that is meant to like cross over into the second book, where the emperor dies via his wife's hands. But I don't know if she had poisoned him or if there was magic, because the thoughts going on never implied to me that there was any form of like poison, and it was just really odd to me. And I felt like with everything going on, like the if I were to describe it, it's like me trying to tie a bow, but tying it halfway. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it didn't end, but it didn't necessarily give me a plausible start for the first book. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, so as for my rating, I'm gonna have to give this a 2 out of 5 stars. I even gave it a 2 out of 5 stars in my Goodreads review. Like I said, I just feel like there was a lot going on, and it just needs to be tied up a little better for me to be more invested in it, and maybe like break out of those tropes that kind of kept the males from growing. Because even after we got into Kenshin and Okami's heads, and even I think a bit of Ranmaru's, they were still very flat. They didn't grow. And I thought that since they had a point of view and they were pivotal characters, they should have gotten more than that. And on top of the ending, there was just a lot going on, and I feel like this book could have been, I don't want to say done a little better because I didn't write the book, but I feel like there could have been ways to make the book so there wasn't so much like things just didn't clump towards the end, you know? But yeah, that's kind of it. I don't think I'll be continuing with the series, because if I am confused with the first book, there's chances that I'm gonna get confused with the second and possibly the third if it's gonna be a trilogy. So I think I'm gonna just put this on my shelf and leave it alone. Maybe I'll try to pick it up again and see, but as for now, I'm just gonna leave it alone. But yeah, that is my thoughts for Flame in the Mist. Hopefully, I'll also be leaving. But yeah, that is my thoughts for Flame in the Mist. I will be leaving my Goodreads review and my blog post on, like, my blog review down below. So hopefully you guys can go ahead and give that a look and see, like, maybe I mentioned something that in that post that wasn't mentioned in this review, or you just want to get like a more tangible like reasoning for that, for whatever for like my tangible like a written word of what I just said. Wow, I'm a mess. But I'm gonna be trying to do a bi-weekly kind of posting, but that probably won't start this week, but next week while I try to figure out like kind of a schedule and how I'm gonna film everything and like when I want them. But next week I should be filming my October wrap-up, yes, and possibly my October haul. Yeah. That'll be for what's up next. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.